So I have just finished recording a different video and it's being uploaded to YouTube right now. But since I like my new microphone so much, I wanted to immediately go and try it on something else. So this is going to be also unscripted, but what I wanted to talk about here is Yakuza 0 and what a great game it is. And essentially for me, it's a contender for a game of the year, probably tied there with Kingdom Come Deliverance, which was also great. But it went beyond my expectations for a Yakuza game. Because I remember playing Yakuza 5 on my PlayStation 3, and while I liked it, I can't really remember any of the story right now. Like, maybe I would be able to remember like the general plot points. I do remember the characters and like the theme of it, but the story was just not that inspiring to me. And this story here in Yakuza 0, I think I will remember for a while. And not just because it's a great story, but because it's beautifully told. And the way that the chapters are laid out is genius. Essentially, you get these two characters that you are switching between every two chapters. And it makes sure to always leave you at a cliffhanger. So as soon as the game becomes really interesting to you for this one character, you're going to be switched to the other character, wanting for more to play with the character that you just played with. But then in 20 minutes, you're going to be engrossed in the story again, and it's just constantly switching between the two, giving you this page-turner thriller experience that is very hard to do in games, I would say. And Yakuza games have always positioned themselves as brawlers, but I would say most of them, probably all of them, are more like a visual novel type of game where the story matters more and all the side content matters more than the actual fighting. And in this game, it's very obvious in that if you lose a fight, you are offered a chance to immediately go and try again, and this works for essentially any fight, unless you're in the last chapters, maybe last chapter, where sometimes when you lose a fight, you have to redo a bunch of fights, but they always give you a full health bar, and I think I've only died a couple of times in the entire game. And if you stock up on health items, which are, by the way, they're cheap, you can essentially plow your way through anybody without even having to upgrade your skills a lot. So, more of a story-based game. And I'm just going to try not spoil too much of it, so I'm going to keep the spoilers to like the first 4 chapters, I would say, and this is those chapters go fast, so usually you will get there in about 2 hours if you don't do a lot of like side content. So this is not much of a spoiler, but I just want to give you the general feel of the story. So Kiryu, the protagonist, one of the protagonists, is working for Yakuza, but right now he's being essentially lent to a loan shark who asks him to go and beat up a guy who's not paying the debt. So you go beat up a guy, the guy gives you the money, you bring the money back to the loan shark, and then the next morning you find out that the guy you just beat up has actually been murdered with a gun in the same alley, and you're essentially being framed for it. So you're trying to uncover why, because everybody's trying to make it look like your fault. But the thing is that this empty lot where the murder happened is a linchpin of this project that the Yakuza is working on, which is essentially they are buying these smaller properties in the same area, so then they can combine them together and basically sell this much bigger area as one deal and get a bigger margin on this. And essentially they just need this empty lot because it's in between of all the stuff that they have already bought, and they can't really sell it for this great margin without the empty lot, and nobody knows who the owner is. So the head of the Dojima family basically tells his 3 lieutenants that whoever finds the owner of this empty lot and can deliver the empty lot to the Dojima family will take the place of Kazama, which is Kiryu's mentor, who is currently sitting in jail. So while you're doing this, the second chapter ends, I think, at your being kicked off from Yakuza. So you join this real estate company that apparently also has ties to Kazama, and you're helping them with this empty lot. And this is where this whole story of Kiryu goes, essentially finding these owners of the empty lot while working with the real estate, the Tachibana real estate company, and trying to keep your friend and essentially your like oath brother Nishikiyama safe. And then the other plot line is Majima Goro, who was essentially banned from Yakuza for disobeying orders, and you would know this if you played Yakuza 5. But now, as his job essentially that they made him do in order to reinstate him back in Yakuza, he has to manage this club, and it's very visual, and here he's this very slick looking, totally different character than in the other games. And because this is a Yakuza 0, it tries to show you how he became who he is in later games. So at this point, he's this very sleek and composed guy, and not this psychomaniac that he is in the later games, basically previous games, but later in the storyline. So essentially you're given the option of you can become Yakuza again, but you have to go and kill this girl, and after you meet her, for reasons that you will probably have to find out on your own, Majima decides that he actually wants to keep her safe, and he goes directly against orders, and then that's where his story comes from. And then these two converge, and I would say one of the plot twists is very telegraphed. It's easy to make out. I would say that like if you play like the first 6 hours, you can kind of guess a lot of the plot points. It would be a big reveal later on, but the story actually ties together in a bow, makes a lot of sense, apart from like the obvious Japanese kind of things where people take their honor and think too far, which probably wouldn't really happen in real life, but doesn't really matter. So what else is great in the game? In addition to this great storyline, you also get these two big side quests, which is real estate management by Kiryu and club management by Majima. They essentially are their own separate quest lines, because like when you're doing the real estate one, you're buying these properties. Some of the properties you can't just outright buy, you have to do these like mini quests to get those properties, and then the other investors, like the 5 billionaires, will challenge you to a fight. So there is fighting involved, and there is a lot of your upgrades being unlocked by this. So that's a lot of side content if you're really into the game. And there is a lot of side missions. I don't remember the count, but like the amount of these additional but like just missions that you get when you walk around the city is insane. I think I was doing most of them. I thought I was doing most of them. But then when I came back to the screen to see how many stories, sub-stories are still hidden, I saw that I maybe have done like 30%. So there is just so much content here. And all those sub-stories are not like, like these fetch quests where you just go and you go fight some guys, you get a better gun. Although a lot of them involve going and fighting, but the stories themselves, like the dialogues, are interesting. So like, for example, one that I remembered a lot is this dominatrix that you're supposed to learn how to be a dominatrix. They're giving her tips what to say to the customer, and it ends in hilarity. Then there is one where you're helping a film producer who's a Steven Spielberg knockoff help a dancer who's essentially a Michael Jackson knockoff to shoot a video, which is essentially a thriller video clip knockoff, where so I forgot what's his name. I will just call him Michael Jackson because that's basically what it is. So Michael Jackson walks around this like narrow street, and the zombies jump like to attack him, and then you're supposed to fight the zombies away. So this is just a very creative take on the process of just brawling and fighting, getting upgrades, and then the story ends. Not story, but when the sub quest ends, they give you an option to select either a big box gift or a small box gift. So it's not really like you're just getting a fixed basically item for doing the quest. You're like having this choose wisely sort of thing, and actually the better item is in the bigger box, ironically, because I think the way they sorted out was that more people would just take the smaller box, thinking that the smaller box, usually would have a better gift just from it. So it's kind of a double twist. And all the side quests that I did are kind of like this. There is one where you just help a kid get a console that was stolen from him because he was waiting in line for this console release. So you go and you find the guy who stole the console from a kid, you beat him up, the guy tells you, oh, it actually was stolen from me too, and you go find the other guy, beat him up, and then it ends with that the last guy who stole the console from the other guy was actually this kid's father, who stole the console for his kid, and kind of goes in the loop. So it's not as fun when you talk about it, because like it's mostly based on gags and jokes that are like inside, and even the main story does great in taking you through all these mini games. Like you have to go at some points and you have to absolutely have to do a karaoke thing, you have to play your kids, you have to do this whole thing where you take a girl out for like a date, where you just bring her to like some food places. There's so much content there, and it's they probably play tested this a lot, because at any point where something gets annoying, like for example at one point, I would say around chapter 8, I got really annoyed by the essentially random encounters where like these Yakuza or random people are just going to jump you in the street, and they just fight you. So it became annoying because all you get from this is money, because money is kind of also experience in this game. So all you get is money, and if you've done the real estate game for a while, then essentially you're rich, and these 200,000 yen that you're getting from fighting these people on the street is nothing to you. So the game gives you an option to just throw your money in the air and let the enemies like squiggle around trying to pick it up, and so basically pay to not be in an encounter. And this is a great thing. It's like, hey, it probably got annoying to this point. If you actually have too much money, you can just skip this. Really great. So now the two cities they have different layout, so they're both like they don't feel like it's the same city, so all the time. So there's variety there. Both Kiryu and Majima have drastically different fighting styles. Some of them, like Majima's breaker style, actually looks ridiculous. Essentially you're dancing instead of fighting, but that became my favorite fighting style just because essentially it's how effective it was. So really great. The controls are great. Everything controls great. One thing that that was really weird to me is the game kept disconnecting the Xbox One controller that I have every time when there was like a particular kind of vibration, you would say. So like if I vibration, I mean, when your controller vibrates when something game happens. So like when I would bump into somebody on the street, and this was a point where the game decided the controller has to vibrate because you bumped into somebody, it would disconnect instead. So that was annoying. But I have Xbox 360 controllers, and this problem didn't happen on those. So I don't know if it's my controller problem, Microsoft problem, game problem. I don't know. But I managed to work around this. So in terms of just things you can do. I just trying to list them from the top of my head. There's fishing, there is obviously karaoke, there is going to these nightclubs, there is disco dancing, there's the arcade games, then there's the all these restaurants that you can go and like order kinds of food from. I don't really know what it's for. Then there is the these car racing that I only unlocked this essentially near the game end, so wouldn't play that too much. Then there's this cat girl fighting of all the things where it's like rock paper scissors kind of thing, but also with betting, and it's just like happening while the girls are fighting and you're betting. Everything just looks very weird, but it's awesome in that. So the best part, it's $20 and it's a AAA game. So just right there, right? So if you haven't played a Yakuza game before, this would actually be a great point to start, just because it's Yakuza 0, so it's essentially meant to be like a first sort of game in the series. So amazing, essentially. If you do this and then you play Kiwami when it comes up in, I think, a few other months, or probably next, like it should be there really soon. There's no release date, but they promise it's going to be out soon. You'll just have so much great time, so I highly recommend it. Yeah, thanks for being here, essentially, and see you next time.